All right, on this week's episode, I'm interviewing Kendra Simpkins Walsh. Kendra is the founder of Operation Warrior Resolution, a nonprofit serving veterans, and you're going to hear about it. But interesting, her background, and she did not get into this. Was in the U.S. Army, honorable discharge. She was an intelligence analyst, then got into social work, studied at Columbia University before founding OWR. She's going to give you the rest of the story, so we hope you will enjoy this interview with Kendra. On this week's episode, I-501C, the podcast for nonprofit board members, I am interviewing Kendra Simpkins Walsh. That's right, I slid in that last name, Kendra Simpkins Walsh. She is the founder and CEO of Operation Warrior Resolution, making a tremendous difference in our community. Looking forward to this discussion, especially the founder part and moving into the CEO role. We'll talk about that, but first, Kendra, if you would, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you became founder and CEO of Operation Warrior Resolution.
Thank you, Michael. I first of all want to say that it is such an honor to be on this podcast because I am your number one fan. I've listened to every single one. So to actually be interviewed on it is such a great honor and privilege. So thank you. I am the founder and CEO of Operation Warrior Resolution, and we are a local nonprofit that serves military veterans with holistic and innovative mental health care. And that came about because of my own journey as a military veteran and transitioning out of the military with pretty debilitating mental health challenges and trying to seek care after the military and transition into civilian life, and how difficult that was, that as I became a licensed clinical social worker and on this journey of healing myself, I said, we need to have better options that are truly healing and creating a life for service members where they're going to thrive after military service.
Well, and you've done a lot of work getting to this point. So you leave the military, you get actually quite a bit of training, I know, because I've read your bio, and you decide to actually found an organization, because surely that can't be hard. I'm just going to do that. So talk a little bit about the founding of OWR and how you did that and some of the challenges.
Actually, it was a little bit like that. Well, this can't be hard, really not knowing what I was getting into. But in my journey of being a clinical social worker, I was trained in all of the evidence-based therapies in graduate school, came out providing those. And within 6 months after graduate school, I noticed these veterans are dealing with severe trauma, and I don't know if these evidence-based therapies are really getting to the root of it. So I went off and got training, Eastern training, Western training, and really learning about neuroscience and how trauma affects the brain and body. And on that journey, I found a modality called brain-based healing. And within a few sessions, even one session, a veteran can come in and just start shaking and stop breathing because they're thinking or trying to talk about the trauma. And afterwards, after that session, they could tell me exactly what happened on deployment, almost as if they're describing what they had for breakfast. It was completely neutralized. It was no longer affecting their lives, bringing up the intense emotions around the event. So I noticed that this was causing the brain to really process trauma in a way that's quick and effective, and wasn't requiring them to relive past traumas at the same time. And I said, let's try to reach them with this modality, and I'll just start a nonprofit so that they can continue receiving services at no cost. And, I'll just get some grants, and how hard can it be? So so that started the journey. I literally Googled how to start a 501c3 and started from there.
So you've got this therapy that you've come across, which is fantastic. And we won't have an opportunity to get into too much detail in that other than it works, which is remarkable. So then you say, I have got to get this out to my fellow veterans. So you start this 501c3. What were the biggest challenges? Go back, take us back to, you started this thing. What were those challenges?
Well, the challenges, first of all, was being able to get out there and just let people know who we are, what we're doing, without a whole lot of history of
Yeah.
programming, and also starting to raise money without that track record and history. And also, brain-based healing is not a traditional method of mental health treatment, so people didn't really understand it, knew how it worked, so they didn't really know what it was to get behind. So it was just getting out there and starting to provide services and collecting data. I'm very big on collecting data and making sure what we're doing is working so that we could show that evidence. And also fundraising. It was a big piece, starting from no money at all. Literally, it was my money that paid for the website to get started, and investing my own money and doing many years of work without getting paid, having a full-time practice outside of that, until we started to really gain some awareness and serving more and more veterans that we were able to uh, get the foundations to see what we were doing and be able to show the success of what we were doing. And then the community just continued to show up from there.
Well, and you did a remarkable job. You're underselling yourself because it's not easy to go from no fundraising experience to really being one of the people that organizations look to. So there's something you did besides. I know I saw you everywhere. You were out and about, which was really important. Was there anything you learned to share with other CEOs, founders on the fundraising journey that you think would be helpful?
Yeah, originally, the first year, we had somebody else who did have fundraising experience who was willing to go out there, and he had a lot of networks and contacts that did
Mm.
help us make that initial money to get started. And then when he transitioned out, it was left up to me.
Yeah.
And and I was thinking, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if we're gonna survive if it's up to me to fundraise," because it was very uncomfortable to talk to people and ask for money. But you know what? I just really focused on it, the impact of what we were doing. And when talking to people, it's all about the impact. And even to this day, the recent giving challenge, our team was nervous about asking people for money. And I said, well, it's not really about asking for money. It's about asking them to join us in this mission. Here's what we're doing. Here's how you can play a part in changing and even saving these lives. So that's what it's about when talking about people and uh, about fundraising.
Well, and that's a good framing of it, and your passion comes through, and I think that's a critical component of it that people maybe underestimate. But when you speak to Kendra, you know the passion just exudes from you when you talk about OWR. And you had something interesting back in the day. So you had a choice to either become board chair or CEO. So early, you're founder, and you assume both roles at once, of course, which is typical. Then you've got to make a decision. You chose to be CEO and to bring in a board chair. Talk a little bit about that thought process. And as you look back, would you have done things any differently?
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked that question. And I also wonder how you knew that because it's been many years that since I haven't been on the board. And when the organization first started, it just seemed to make sense that I was the board chair, because I wear many hats and still do. And that's just in terms of developing the organization. I had to develop a board, and then I had to develop the organization and programming itself. And it never even occurred to me that those two should be separate until the CEO from the Selby Foundation came to do a site visit and said, this is not something that that's typically appropriate for
Sure.
a larger nonprofit as you continue to grow. And so that started making me think about that and realizing that there does need to be separation between board and daily operations, and to have that transparency and that governance on each side. And if it's the same person doing that, it's not going to prevent that conflict of interest, or to even be able to bring in the, I guess, strategic outlook that both of them need from each side. And so it didn't even occur to me that I would even stay board chair. It just made sense to me, like, of course I would be CEO because I wanted to be on the ground working with veterans. I wanted to be in the
Ah,
day-to-day operations, working with them. I also had that knowledge of building programming, the different kinds of modalities that we were providing for clinical care. So it just made sense for me to be the CEO.
yeah, and you've been very effective at it for sure. And of course, you've got, I would assume, a very effective board. I know several of the board members, and they're just as passionate and really do a tremendous job. But I commend you because it's hard for the founder to say, I'm going to be CEO. Excuse me, that's the easy part. The hard part is, and now I got a bunch of bosses looking over my shoulder. So I can only imagine, and we won't get into that detail, but I can only imagine sometimes you scratching your head going, oh, brother, I can't believe this.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I don't think I realized what I was actually, giving up, if you will. But also, I think the board and I have a really good relationship in terms of, yes, they are my bosses, but we work together.
Yeah.
And they understand that they don't know or could do what I could do. So if there's any questions or anything to be discussed through, that we work together and talk through that. And I really appreciate not being on the board
Mm.
because I realize how important a board is because they have that board experience and they all have their particular expertise area that they focus on that I don't have. And so I rely on these folks to be able to give me that guidance because of their previous board experience and all of their knowledge and expertise in the particular field that they work in.
Oh, that's great. That's a great compliment, and that's exactly how a board's supposed to function, is to complement and support the work of the CEO without getting into your business. So I guess if they don't understand it, they can't get into it, right?
Right, right. Now, I will say there has been times where the board would want to get into day-to-day operations in terms of helping to manage staff, and thankfully, we do have other board members who do see that the board's role is not to get
Yeah.
involved with the day-to-day operations and the staff members, that's the CEO's role, and so sometimes they need to be reminded by the other board members.
And that's fair, and it's all out of the goodness of the heart. They want to do things, and I totally appreciate that. So, as CEO, what are your priorities right now? What are you focused on as the leader of the organization?
And well, I'm constantly thinking about the vision. Where are we going to be in 1 year, 3 year, 5 years or more? And thinking about how that looks in terms of if we are going to grow and scale, what kind of services are we going to provide? What is the need in our community? What is the need that in the organization when I first started the nonprofit is completely different from what I initially envisioned it to be. It was just initially we're going to provide this treatment of brain-based healing, these one-on-one individual sessions, and now it's grown into so much more because anytime that we saw a need of, well, there's other options that they could also do to incorporate healing and wellness into their life. And there's a huge amount of isolation and loneliness in the veteran community. How are we going to create this community aspect and have them know that they are not alone, that there's others here to support them in this journey? So we just kind of evolved into building other programs that helped to meet that need, such as retreats to introduce them to other ways of health and wellness, and also to build that community aspect of knowing that there are other veterans out there who also have their back. And then spouses, like we didn't originally serve the spouses of service members, but we saw that we were getting the veterans on such a good track that they would go back home and be a completely different person, but yet their family was still suffering. So then we had to bring the whole family in, help that the spouses or partners and even children are suffering because it's everybody under the roof who's suffering. If it's one person struggling with mental health, it affects everybody. So now we've just grown and expanded into meeting the need because anytime it's like, oh, how do we meet this need? This one of the highest risk factors for suicide is financial difficulties. And so we could give them mental health treatment all day long, but how are we going to help support them to put food on the table for their family? Having purpose again after the military is a huge um, factor in being able to thrive in civilian life. So how do we create purpose? So we incorporated a workforce program where we're training them to do skills such as trade and construction and getting a CDL license and creating this purpose again while also giving them a meaningful career that's going to financially sustain them and their families. So I just constantly am thinking about, okay, there's all these aspects if we think about this high veteran suicide rate. How are we going to meet those aspects from a holistic model? Because it's not just one route, it's all of these things. And so as we look at that in terms of growth, it's just how do we continue to meet these different needs on a larger scale? So I'm constantly thinking about who we need to bring in, what kind of a facility do we have, um, and making sure that we have the right people on the team to do that.
Well, you creating the vision and exercising it certainly reflects your leadership abilities. And I want to go to a very interesting time as the CEO of OWR, and that was you had a house. This was a few years ago, and it got flooded out twice in a very short period of time. I can only imagine how devastating that was. How did you, as a leader, how did you lead through that and rally the troops, no pun intended, rally the troops to say, we're going to thrive, we're going to continue, and there's going to even be better on the other side?
Yeah, that was a very challenging time that we were in. Part of our mission is to shift the way that mental health care is provided and
Mhm.
outside of the clinical setting because that can be such a deterrent for somebody coming in to receive services is to be in a clinical setting walking into this stale office environment.
Sure.
So we create it to be more warm and welcoming into having it be a home so that they can feel like they're meeting with somebody on a personal rather than
Mm.
a professional medical level. So we actually had our facility on. It was in a house that was on Philippi Creek. It was on a couple acres of land, and it was such a beautiful peaceful, welcoming spot, and, I asked, the owner at the time because we were renting, I said, "Does the creek ever overflow?" And he said, "No, it hasn't even come close to cresting." So never did I ever think that there would be a problem until, I got we Hurricane Debbie came, and it was a couple days of just nonstop rain, and I got a video from the owner that evening, and he showed me the video of 3 feet of water just like, the creek was just flowing through the whole house, and we lost pretty much everything, and, what could be salvaged was could fit on a six-foot table, and it was devastating because I worked so hard to get every little thing, every dollar matters, and every time we spend a dollar on something, it means so much. So to lose that, and I guess it's all coming back now, to lose that is, really a painful thing to go through, but it wasn't just that, it was 2 days prior to the flood. Our whole team was there. We had veterans, getting sessions of brain-based healing. We were planning a couples retreat. We had somebody come out because we were gonna start growing a garden and growing some foods for the veterans, and it was just the energy that was created by what we were doing there and the possibilities of what was about to take place there were just so exciting, and then to see it all gone, um, was very challenging, but after a few moments of like, "Wow, this is happening," I said, "Okay, well, where do we go from here? I mean, how do we first of all, how do we continue to serve and not stop operations?" Because that was the first of just 3 hurricanes that hit our area in a short amount of time, and the mental health need in our community was great among many other needs that they had. So, how do we continue operations? How do we keep serving? Thankfully, our community showed up and they offered space for us to work out of, different nonprofits and
Yep.
other private practices. So we were just utilizing space that people donated to us until we could find another one to be able to land in.
And through that, though, how did you I'm curious because I was very impressed with your leadership through this. I was watching it from afar, but I can only imagine how devastating it was. I can't even. That's all I can do is imagine. And yet, you come out on the other side. I mean, there was some rocky stuff, but all of a sudden, it seemed like OWR just explodes immediately after that. Somehow, you got the team focused and back in action. I mean, how often did you communicate with the team? How'd you do it? How'd you handle people that were grieving?
Yeah, well, thankfully that our team is just amazing.
Mm,
Like literally the next day as the waters were receding, everybody showed up. We had volunteers show up to go through all of our stuff, to clean out the place, to throw it in large dumpsters.
yeah.
And everybody was in such great spirits of it's okay. Like we're gonna get through this um this is part of the journey and the community showed up in ways to support that was immeasurable. It was really incredible the way that they showed up to help clean everything out or to donate items or to offer space or to donate money. It was really incredible. And I think that was the most touching part of that experience, to see the way that the community showed up for each other. And it had never even occurred to me that we would purchase our own facility to move into. It had always been in our strategic plan, but it seemed a little overwhelming to do a capital campaign and design this place from the ground up. So I just thought, like, how do we use this as an opportunity to really go into a location that's a better fit for
Mm.
us, that we can use on a daily basis for all our programs, because we were kind of mishmashed all over Sarasota and Manatee counties, and just started thinking about what that would look like and exploring options of, well, if we're going to go in, what does it look like? And we actually found a place that was pretty perfect to exactly what we needed. And because the community had been showing up to support us, they made that happen. And now we own 6 acres, free and clear.
Absolutely remarkable, and remarkable what you've done out there. So out of bad, challenging times, good can happen. And I love how you said the community rallied. And sometimes as a leader, we need that community support to keep us focused and keep us realizing that, hey, it's okay. We're going to make this. So as you led through that, I was really impressed. Now, since
Yeah.
then, somehow you got into this George Bush Leadership Institute. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I'm happy to talk about that. That was an incredible experience at the George W. Bush Veterans Leadership Institute. And it was something that one of our board members actually encouraged me to apply for. And I had been in the Sarasota Leadership Program, and it was such a wonderful experience to build those relationships. And we have some big collaborations that came out of that. Like, our workforce program came out of Leadership Sarasota. So I knew how beneficial building these relationships in leadership could be, and being able to serve each other in a greater, bigger way. And that program was life-changing. I say there's, like, my life before the Veterans Leadership Program and my life after. I mean, it was truly incredible. They selected 37 of us nationwide who are either military veterans, military spouses, but they work some in the military-related space, and they have shown that they have accomplished and been successful in what they're doing to create change in these lives of military. And I was selected to take part in it, and it was 5 months long. It was very intensive because once a week we had to either travel to DC or Dallas, to spend solely focused on the leadership program, day and night, first thing in the morning until late in the evening. And to be around a group of people that were just so passionate about serving the military community and learning about what they were doing and building these relationships with them, they are some of the best people that I've ever met and will be my friends for the rest of their life. And we were able to get training from, Bush's cabinet officials and just high level, like, professors from MIT, and a lot of high level people came in to provide some leadership workshops. And then we also got to spend the day with President Bush and his wife on the last day, which was special and meaningful. And we had a project that we all had to focus on in leadership to, okay, how are we going to take this experience and what are you going to do with it to create change in your community? And that's our new project that we're working on now, where we're creating this unique, one of a kind retreat space for military veterans, but also the nonprofit community as a whole, because we're building lots of partners. We actually even have another workforce collaboration that just started with one of the individuals that I met in leadership, as well as others.
Well, you're certainly doing remarkable stuff. So, for those of us who will not be able to attend that George W. Bush Leadership Institute because we're not military veterans, what couple takeaways from the leadership training that you walk away with and go, "Wow, that that has changed me." I think everybody needs to know this.
That is a great question, because I had a lot of takeaways. One thing that I really took away from that is that I felt a little intimidated going into the group. I had
Mm.
imposter syndrome, like, "What do I
Yes.
have to offer? Why am I here with this group of people?" But you know what? I have noticed that I myself am a unique individual with unique experiences, with unique knowledge that nobody else in this room has. And no matter who is in the room, I have something to offer. And that I like to think creatively, like how to get things done. Like I don't think we would have gone through the hurricane or be in the position we are unless we think creatively. Because the same ways of doing things is not going to be the same ways that are going to get things done today. And that just allowed me to be able to take that experience and think creatively about how do I take now what I know to be able to do things in a completely different way that's
Mm.
more impactful.
Oh, I like that. Getting over the imposter syndrome. Wow, if more leaders could just do that, because it is a real thing. But you're right, we've all got something to offer based on our experiences. So, Kendra, there's a little Kendra Simpkins out there somewhere who's thinking about starting a nonprofit to help somebody. What would be your advice to that impending founder?
First of all, I wanna commend you for and I actually have quite a lot of people coming to me and just asking me, this very question, and I think that it's really admirable that somebody wants to do that because it really says a lot about who they are. If they wanna put forth their time and effort and energy because there's something so meaningful to them and they wanna create change in lives and their community, that is amazing, and just take it one step at a time. Talk to other nonprofits who are doing similar work. See if there's maybe something you can do to work together to get started on your venture. Um, Also, ask for help. Um, Ask for help. that that is something I struggle with and something that I do a lot. Um, because you can't do this by yourself. Like, it takes a community of people to do it. So ask for help. My mentors, I wouldn't be where I am today without them, and just giving back to me. And people want to help too. So don't be afraid to ask for help because you're giving them that opportunity to help and they want to be utilized for what they know. So do that and 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 just being able to get out there and talk to people. And even though it can be sometimes uncomfortable to do, just there's going to be lots of no's or I'm not interested, but just get out there and just keep talking. Like passion shines through and people can see that and people can get excited about that. So just keep that going because that's important.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen, a recipe for success for you budding entrepreneurs who want to start a nonprofit. Kendra Simpkins Walsh, CEO of Operation Warrior Resolution and founder. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you, Michael. I truly appreciate it.
Here we go, moving into our segment called Recapping with Reed. Reed, you heard what Kendra had to say, a lot in there. What are your top 3 takeaways?
I always find it interesting when people who are not natural fundraisers get into a role when they have to fundraise and what it's like to learn about that. And she is exactly that. She felt awkward asking people for money, but eventually came to the realization you're not asking people for money. You're asking them to join you along in supporting this mission. She learned to focus on the impact that they're providing. It's not just about asking for money, it's about showing the proof.
Yeah, and she gives people the opportunity to experience the joy of giving. That's really important. I'm glad you pointed that out. Number 2.
During the time of extreme adversity with the flooding of their location, what she said that stood out to me was she kept thinking about how do we continue to serve our clients? That's, they didn't have a building anymore, but what connections do we have? Where can we use the community and how can the community support us? And how can we continue to serve our clients?
Great leadership. She kept herself and her team focused on mission. And number 3.
Kind of building off of that as well, she talked about the value of Leadership Sarasota and the George Bush Leadership Institute, what it meant to make those connections, learn from other people. To me, it just reinforces for all the leaders out there, invest in your people, whether that's sending them to a leadership conference or having them take a course. But, giving people the ability to learn and make connections is invaluable in the long run.
Yeah, and the expectation that they do follow up on those connections, and she's masterful at it. She's done it in this community, and she's not afraid to ask for help. That is just something very special about a leader and very humble. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Takeaways from Reed, Recapping with Reed, and we will I-501 see you next week.